In this video, I want to talk about user interfaces, also known as menuing systems, for Microsoft Access. A user interface is something that a designer would create for a user so that the user could easily perform the tasks that they want to perform without having to go into the navigation pane and search through to figure out which item they want to do the task that they want to do. Instead, the user interface is available to them and it makes the access of the operations that they want to perform much easier because there are buttons and tabs and various easily accessible attributes available in their user interface. So the two kinds of user interfaces that I want to discuss are navigation forms and main menu forms. And for both of them, I want to talk about examples of each, and then I also want to talk about how to create each one of those. Here's an example of a navigation form that you would create, and it's a nice, attractive, easy to use user interface. It makes the forms of this particular database easily available to the user. So here, for example, the Orders tab is clicked on, and so it shows the orders form. And then if I were to click on Customers, it shows a nice form for entering customers. And then here I can click on Menu Items, and it has a second level of tabs, and so I can click on Menu Items and it brings up the form for menu items, and then I can click on Products and it brings up form for products. So the thing that I want to say is that this particular form is pretty user friendly and attractive too to the eye, and easy to use because it's easy to find what you need. Now a navigation form, which is what this is a form where it has tabs, as it does here. And also it can have more than one level of tabs. For example, here it looks like it only has one level of tabs, but if you were to click here, you can see a second level of tabs. And for each tab, there is associated, in this case, a form. But you can associate a table, a query, a form, or a report with a particular tab. So that's just basically an example of a navigation form that you can create to make a user interface. So now I want to show you how to create a navigation form. And so to repeat myself, I want to make sure that you understand that the reason why we would make a user interface is to make it easier for the user to perform the tasks that it wants to perform without having to know a lot about Access and going and finding the specific thing that they need to look for in order to perform the tasks that they need to do. Like, for example, open the patient form and then type in patient records. To begin creating a navigation form, I'm going to click on Create, and then I'm going to click on the arrow just next to the word navigation here in the Forms group. And I'm going to come down here to horizontal tabs, to levels, and I'm going to click. Here's the beginnings of a navigation form. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this so that I can have a user interface. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to navigation, this navigation form label to something else. So I changed that while the video was off so that to save time. And so now moving on, I'm going to create my tabs and associations with the various objects here in the list. So I'm going to first start by clicking and dragging this form patient here. And now you can see that the patient form here is associated with this tab. Next, I'm going to take this particular form and I'm going to drag it up here to this tab. And now this particular form is associated with this tab. And next, I'm going to change what this tab says. And I'm going to say reports, okay? And then I'm going to associate several reports down on the second level here to demonstrate that you can have a second level. So I'll go ahead and take this invoices by item and I'll drag it up here. And then next, I will drag this particular report up to this Add New tab. And so now we have two reports that are associated with this particular Reports tab. If I click here, I will see in the Invoices or Visits and Invoices form. And if I click here, I'll see the patient information form. And so now I've created a navigation form. So right now I am in Layout View. Let's see what it looks like in Form View. Okay, so here we have a tab and we have the patient form. Click on Tab and it switches to Visits and Invoice. Here I click on this Reports tab and it will show the first report on the left. And then if I click here, then it'll show the other report. So what I want to do now is I want to change what these say. Reports is fine, but these other guys, not so fond of. So I'm going to go back into Layout View and I'm going to just click here in the tab and I'm going to highlight FRM and I'm going to press delete and press enter, and I'll click here on this tab and then I'll click again and then I'll highlight FRM and I'll click delete, and I'm going to put some spaces here as well. And then Reports is fine, but I do want to go and change the sub-tabs names. So I'm going to click here and then I'm going to click again and I'll take the letters RPT away and I'll put spaces in between the invoice and the word buy and the word buy and the word item, and then I'll come over here to this one and I'll change this one appropriately as well. And so now if I go into Form View, it will show these nice tabs with the appropriate labels. And the thing that I want to say is that how much easier it is for a user to just see this on the screen and click on patient. Oh, that's what I want. Than to have to come over here and try to figure out which one in the list they want. So next I want to talk about a menuing form. And so I want to show you an example. Here's a very basic example of a main menu form. All this is just a regular form. I've typed in a label. I've typed in main menu and a label. And then I have here a few buttons, including one that says close. And that's the basic idea behind this kind of user interface, is you'd have a menu and then you'd have a series of buttons that the user could just click on to get access to what they need to get access to. And so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how to create something like this. So of course, to begin, I'm going to click on Create, and I'm going to go over here to Form Design. And Form Design has a blank white form, and I don't really like the color of this form. So I'm going to click in the form in the detail area, and then I'm going to come here to Home, and I'm just going to come over here to this area over here, and I'm going to pick a different color than white to make it a little bit nicer looking. And so I think I'll go ahead and just pick this particular color. And so now I have a blue background, which looks a little bit better. Next, I'm going to insert a label that will say main menu. So I'm going to click on Design and then a label. And then I'm going to just type main menu. And you can barely see that. So I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the lettering, and I'm going to change the size of the font so that it can be seen better, and I'll make that label bigger. And then I think I'll make it centered in the label. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some buttons, and the purpose of the buttons is to make any one of these particular items that I want to make accessible. And so I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click on button, and then I'm going to click here, and now I have a command button. And so I'm going to delete this, and I'm just going to put the word patient here instead. And then I'm going to insert another button, and this time I'm going to say visits and invoices. Okay. And then next I'm going to insert another button, and this time I'm going to say invoices by item. And then finally I'm going to insert a button and say visits and invoices. These are all the items that I've been working on and that I inserted on the navigation menuing system in the previous example. So we have 4 buttons here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to align them. They're already selected, so I'll just right click and I'll align to the left, and now they're all aligned. And I can arrange them so that they're evenly spaced by clicking on Arrange, coming here to Size/Space, and coming down here to Equal Vertical. And now they're spaced out equally. Now the thing is that if I come here and I go into form view, it will do nothing if I click on these buttons. And the reason for that is because I haven't associated a macro with them. And I need to do that in order to make them work. The other thing that I'm just noticing now is that my labels aren't quite showing for these particular buttons. So I'm going to make them wider. And then and I'll move them over a little. But they now show the full words that I want to have show up. Except for I think I want to have the word report on this guy so we can see the difference. We know the difference. Okay. There. Okay. So now the next thing that I want to do is go ahead and associate a macro with each one of these buttons. So the first one, I've clicked on this and you can see that I am referring to the button, and I'll click on this build button. I'll say OK. I'll say open form, and then I'll say form patient. And then I'll save it and close it. And just to demonstrate, I'll go into form view. And now if I click on patient, it actually opens the patient form. And I can close the patient form, and I'll go back to the main menu. So now I'll go ahead and associate macros to each one of these other buttons. So I'll click on this button, I'll click on the build button, and I'll say OK, and I'll say open form, and I'll say form, and I can just click on the down arrow here and click on the visits and invoices one, and I'll say save and close. And then I can come here, and actually this is a report, so I'm going to say report here as well. And so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on the build button for this particular button, and I'll say OK, and then I'll say open, but this time it's a report I want to open, so I'll say open report, and then I'll say the report that I want, which is invoices by name, and then I'll say save and close. And then I'm going to come down here and I want the visits and invoices report associated with this button. So I'm going to click here on the on-click property, and I'm going to click on the build button for that property, and I'll say OK, and I'll say open report, and then I'll pick visits and invoices. Oh, there we go. Okay, and I'll say save and close. And so now if I right click and I go into form view, then I can pull up these other forms. For example, visits and invoices, and here it is. Or I can go and open the report, invoices by item report. And there it is. Okay. So one final thing that I would say about this menuing system is it needs a close button. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go into design view, and instead of going up here and getting a new button, I'm just going to have this selected, and I'm going to say Control C and Control V, and that's just going to copy and paste it. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to change the text here and say close. And I'm going to come over here to this property, the on-click property for this button. And I'm going to click on the build button here. And now, of course, it's going to say that I want to open the report. But actually what I wanted to do is close the database. So I'm going to click on delete here to delete that command. And then I'm going to say close database. And then I'm going to say save and close. And now I have a close button. And actually I think I'd like to bold that. So I'm going to say home and bold. There's lots of different things that you can try to make your user interface look nice and usable for your users. And that's just one little thing that I did. And so then if I right click here and I say form view, here I have my main menu. And now I have not saved this form yet, this main menu form. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'll just call it main menu. And actually I'll put the FRM in front. And then I'll say OK. And so now I'm going to go ahead and double click, or single click actually, because it was a single click event, on this close button, and it's going to close my database. And it has in fact closed the database and brought us back here to the first screen that we began with. So to just review, user interfaces are really nice to make features that you want to have accessible to your user. They're really nice to make them accessible, yes. And I really encourage you to think about the user and how to make your system so that a user doesn't have to know the inner workings of Access, but can easily use your system.